Do we ever think about our car engine and its heat cycle? Now, what is a heat cycle in the engine? Well, very, very simply, a heat cycle is the phases of using the engine: the warm-up phase, the operating phase, and the cool-down phase. Now, a lot of us will just get into our car and drive it. We won't give any thought at all to any of these different phases. Now, the first phase, the warm-up phase, is probably the most critical. More wear and tear happens in this phase than at any other time of using a car. In fact, studies have shown up to 70% of an engine's wear happens while it's cold during that warm-up phase. And that's partly down to the fact that the oil viscosity is thicker. It's not lubricating as effectively, but it's also down to the fact that the engine oil degrades because you get blow-by. The fuel that's going into the cylinders washes oil off the side of the cylinders and reduces lubrication. And the car is generally producing more soot, which is going to clog up the exhaust gas recirculation system, the particulate filter. And most modern cars in Europe have particulate filters regardless of whether they're a diesel or a petrol engine. And if we only ever enter the cold phase of the engine, we're storing out a lot of trouble for ourselves, because the next phase, the operating temperature range, this is where the oil temperature gets up to, say, 90 degrees. In many cases, it goes up to about 120 degrees, but we'd certainly want it to be somewhere between 70 and 100 degrees. The benefits of this period is that the oil gets a chance to evaporate off the moisture that is collected in it. The fuel dilution as well reduces a little bit in the oil when it gets up to operating temperature. And also the engine has a chance to breathe properly. It produces less soot. There's less soot going into the EGR system. The particulate filter is getting a little bit more heat into it. The catalysts get up to about 300 degrees, and the emissions is dramatically reduced when you get to this point after a few miles of driving in most cases. So by never getting into this warm operating phase, the engine is just storing up problems generally in the oil. It's picking up all the debris from the bad combustion, the moisture, the fuel that's seeping down into the combustion chambers, and it's not going to lubricate the engine as effectively, and it's going to become a big problem. Now, the final phase is the cool down phase. Now, a lot of people will just switch off their engine and walk away, and in most cases we can do that. We've generally not pushed it too hard. If we've been engaging in a bit of spirited driving, if we've been on the track day, we need to allow the engine to cool down a little before we shut it off. We've got to make sure the oil has a chance to cool slightly. The coolant is still circulating through the turbocharger. That said, a lot of modern engines will do this automatically after you shut off, and they'll keep a circulation of coolant and oil going through the turbocharger just to make sure that that is properly lubricated during this cool down phase. But I know a lot of people, and I certainly wouldn't see any harm in doing this, just letting the engine idle for 30 seconds and taking it easy for the last mile of the journey, just to make sure that we're not above the normal operating temperature when we shut the engine off. And this heat cycle allows the engine to warm up properly, to expand, so all of the clearances inside the engine meet the manufacturer's tolerances. It gets to work effectively and cleanly for that period of time, and allowing it to get to its operating temperature can reduce the problems that have been created in that warm-up phase. And it's also a good idea to allow the engine to just cool down slowly, particularly if we've been doing that bit of spirited driving. And the cool down phase is more critical if we've exceeded the normal operating temperature rate. If we've been doing that hard driving or that spirited driving, then we should observe a proper cool down before we shut the engine off. Let me know what your thoughts are. It's probably going to be a more controversial video, and there's going to be some spirited discussions and passionate debate on both sides of this argument. If you've enjoyed the video, please boot the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. That really does help us to get out there. I've lined up this video that you should find really interesting and this playlist, so see you in these next videos. Thanks for watching.